in Palette Land and on the internet. I'm so excited to be here for Women's Equality Day at Palette 2021. And we're celebrating 101 years of the ratification of the 19th Amendment. And this is a great occasion. It's a wonderful occasion. But guess what? We're on a little different kind of panel right now. And it is called The 19th Amendment Did Not End the Fight. And we're about to have some real talk. I'm about to have some real talk. So I'm Marcella Hammer. I am the Palette Resident Unicorn. And I'm so excited to be here with these amazing human women today. And I am going to let you guys introduce yourselves. First off, we have Destiny Watkins. We have Monique Headley. We have Jacqueline Tayo. And I'm going to turn over the mics to you guys and just let everybody know who you are. And then we're going to talk a little bit about why the heck we're here. It's going to be fun.
Hi, everyone. I'm Destiny Watkins. I am the small business lender at Community Loan Fund of the Capital Region, where we focus on providing small business loans for low-income owned, minority-owned, and women-owned businesses. Women-owned business is a really huge part of the economy, and I'm glad to support that. I work with individuals personally to help walk them through how to be entrepreneurs and how to be the fabulous women that I know that they can be.
Monique.
Hi, everybody. I'm Monique Headley. I work in diversity, equity, and inclusion, but really today I'm here as a citizen who is really passionate about suffrage, who's really interested in the history of the region, especially, and how connected it is with suffrage. But my background also includes journalism. I've worked in music. I feel like I've had a few different careers. But I'm excited about today's panel.
Hello, everyone. I'm RJ, Jacqueline Tayo. I am clergy. I am a voter. I am a mother. I am a lover of people. And I'm definitely a lover of everyone that's on this panel. And I honor and I pay homage to them for all that they do. You're mainly sometimes, I guess, in the background, but definitely on the front lines of being supportive of all women, and definitely want to give a shout out to Miss Catherine, who we're going to we're going to raise our fists and our hands up to her and give honor to all of who she is and what she means to us as women. So thank you, love you.
All right, let's have some real talk. So last year, we celebrated 100 years of the ratification of the 19th Amendment. We all know at least a little bit about women's suffrage and that the 19th Amendment was a guarantee of the right to vote for women. However, big however, capital letters, it with like a word art, remember, like shadows behind it, all kinds of stuff. This is a really big however. And I think there is a huge misconception, especially with white feminists, that the 19th Amendment guaranteed the right to vote and then suddenly everybody can vote, but that is absolutely not the case. And that really is the heart and soul of why we wanted to have this discussion today, because it's not true. And there is a lot more, not even nuance. It's not even nuanced. It's just like straight up. So I'm so excited to kind of just talk with you all and explain to everybody and really learn myself about what was the reality of the 19th Amendment. So tell me more. Tell me more. Who wants to start? Monique?
Okay, I'll jump into the waters. What's interesting is that with that passage of the 19th Amendment, there was the huge celebration. As a matter of fact, I brought some of these. Look at that. We've got this for the passage. But it didn't actually work for everybody. So I'm gonna have to take it back from you. You get to keep it because you would have been one of the, in terms of the groups that are represented, the people of color, African American, I'm not sure of everybody's diverse backgrounds, but in terms of people of color, you would have been the one who would have been able to vote. But yet, interestingly, everybody was involved in attaining that right to vote. So we were all still a part of it, but when it came time for African Americans, that was a little bit further, really Some people had the ability to vote, but not everybody. So in 1965, that's when the Voting Rights Act came through for African Americans. But prior to then, you had different groups that were looking for their own suffrage. So Latinos or Latinx did not get their official suffrage until much later. Native Americans did not get their suffrage until much later. Asian and Pacific Islander Americans did not get their suffrage until much later. So many people were delayed for additional decades past that 1920 celebration.
And I just wanted to read a quote by Susan B. Anthony because last year was actually when I was informed about women of color not being able to vote. And what really hurt my heart was knowing that all types of women were involved in the women's suffrage movement. But Susan B. Anthony, she said this: there never will be complete equality until women themselves help to make laws and elect lawmakers. And when I found that the women that were actually on the front lines with her, women of color, were not invited to be on the actual physical front lines. They were told to be in the back. And, you don't want to be known as that angry, you know what follows that sometimes. But it made me very angry to know that, there are people who are losing their lives, women of color losing their lives just so they can vote and asked to step in the back would do a lot of the hard work.
And it was literally asked to step in the back. There is the story about the great suffragist parade that was in Washington, D.C., and the Black suffragists, and correct me if I'm wrong, but they were told to march in the back. And I think it was Ida B. Wells was like, I'm going to go right here with everyone else from my region where I belong. And, for us now in 2021, that sounds so logical. It doesn't sound like the kind of risk and scary situation that it must have been for her to do that, even in a community where she's been working side by side with these women. I was just as heartbroken as you, Jack.
Right. I know. So I think I read last year Gwendolyn, a poem by Gwendolyn Brooks, and it was a very powerful poem. But even today, women who are in politics, and I believe there's only about 20% of women of color who represent people in Congress as representatives, legislators. So we and I don't think many of us can even mention any of their names. I don't think we know many of the people that represent us as a whole, not just people of color. But we should be knowing these people's names. We should be writing them. We should be having a personal relationship with them because, there's still so many changes that need to be made. I hear of so many people who are employed that are suffering discrimination, and even I remember a couple of years ago, I went to go vote, and it wasn't made public that they changed the site where we were supposed to vote. And that's just another form of suffrage. And, our politicians, they need to hear about the things that we're suffering with still to this day regarding voting. So that's what I wanted to actually share with today.
I would say I definitely agree with that. As being one of, a young person, still like learning some of the history and even the things that, as a modern person that I experience today, I couldn't even fathom like what it could have been like back then. I also don't have, that mental experience of having been, a certain age and seeing certain things happen. But just the fact that it's still happening today and there's still certain circumstances that even me, I experience. And I'm just like, history is repeating itself. It's really something that we need to shine a light on. And I think understanding the history of what happened and acknowledging the fact that these women really did, do a lot for us. There's still more to do, but understanding like what's happened and what the circumstances was, and the fact that despite them saying, it's all good, everybody can vote now, that wasn't the case. And I think, history is painted by who writes it, right? Like you really have to dig for the information. So that's important for us to find that out and to know that.
So I think one thing that's
Yeah, I was going to say we got to write our own history instead of letting all the Bobs, the Johns, the Michaels,
the Bobs.
all the Bobs.
All the Bobs.
Wait, we have an onlooker with a question.
Don't you think that it's ironic in the election of 2020, 100 years after, that not only is there a tremendous push to suppress the vote, it's beyond what in my lifetime I would ever see the horrible behavior of even our elected representatives, our U.S. senators and congressmen, working in concert with these lunatics that are trying to destroy the right to vote in states all over this nation. It's just ironic and sad, so sad. And my mother was born in 1920, and she passed a few years ago. But she never missed. My mother was very interested in politics, and she never missed an opportunity to vote in a primary, a school board election, whatever it was. And she had 4 daughters, and she taught us all. That's your voice.
Yeah.
Never forget it. And nobody has done more in recent history than Stacey Abrams.
Oh, let's everybody give a round of applause for Stacey Abrams.
Yay.
Yes.
Stacey
Yes.
Abrams, we love you.
Yes.
We love you.
Yes.
She gives me hope every day of the week.
I
And
absolutely.
we want to thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I want to thank you for saying that, because I know Dr. Martin Luther King said, it's the people that are neutral, that don't speak out. You are the ones that are doing the most damage.
Yes.
So I appreciate you. I appreciate you speaking and, being bold and coming out and admitting that.
Well, I was delighted to see this. And good work.
Thank you.
Keep up the good
So
work.
for anyone on the internet audience, which we actually have that too, I know. Welcome to 2021, the world of technology and magic. The question was really about the irony of the 2020 election, the 100th anniversary of the 19th Amendment ratification, and the absolute massive amount of voter suppression that was happening across our nation and being supported by a lot of people who are in politics. And it was terrifying. It was not something I certainly ever expected to see in my lifetime either. And
My husband and I just talked this morning that we're afraid that before the end of our lives, we might lose our democracy.
oh, you're not losing your democracy.
Oh,
Look at us. We're giant. We're
we
coming.
All don't take
Sir,
care
we got you.
every day. We have
We'll
to
take
work
care of
on
you.
this every day. We have to work on
That
it.
is
But one
So
thing
thank you. I'm glad you're working on it.
Thank you.
One thing is very interesting too is when you look at the history of the Constitution, when you look at the language that was in the original document, it really was not, there's a legacy of suppression to a certain extent, because the initial intent was really that property owners and taxpayers would be the ones to vote. And then it was expanded somewhat to allow non-property owners to male property owners to vote. So when you consider just that small subgroup, especially with the initial one, that was 6% of the population had the ability to set the laws for the entire burgeoning nation.
Well, the people, I visited recently in Monticello.
I feel like we need to bring in a chair for you.
I think
No, I just want to say that the people that wrote the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence, they were men of their time and their region.
Yes.
So they had great vision in many ways, but they were not perfect. They were great men, but they weren't perfect.
And that's the beauty of democracy, bringing that all back around. Like it's an evolving thing. It's a living thing. It's not, even though principles of it get etched in stone, in and of itself, it is not a stone. It is not a monolithic stone thing. It is shaped constantly from generation to generation, and it grows. And I think even just the fact that we are here on this day is proof of that.
That's true. That's true. Well, again, a good fight, ladies. Thank you. Nice
Great
to see
question.
this younger generation coming along, working on.
You know what I so appreciate. What is your name, dear?
Diane.
Diane, who you can't see on there, but we can all see. Thank you for stopping and for proving the point that we're doing this for a reason. And you made my day. That was awesome. I'm going to turn it back over to you gals, and let's talk about voter suppression. This is 2020 was not the first time, and there are so many obstacles that aren't just the legal, like the amendment. Like that was not the only obstacle. Like it doesn't just take a law to make someone able to vote. There are a lot of obstacles that are in the way. Can you speak to that?
There have been so many obstacles. I mean, when you talk about things like poll tax, where people had to pay to vote and pay an exorbitant amount, and unpayable amounts, basically, or who were given literacy tests, or who were given property ownership requirements. So there, as Jacqueline mentioned, I'm sure she'll talk more about it, how places were closed that used to be open for voting without any advance or sufficient advance notification. So that is that's a constant fight.
And just reflecting on when I did go to my site, it was such a heart-wrenching thing to go there, and then you see the sign saying that it's closed, and they're I guess they were trying to direct me to another type of, I don't know, newspaper or something where the site was. I mean, they didn't give you the new site information. So I believe what we want to start with the WAVE, Women About Voting, starting a committee and having workshops so we can educate people on people who are actually running for office, and we need to be educated. How many of us, just we don't have to answer it right now, but think about how much we know about the people that are running. Whether, like, do they have the same type of principles, or do they have the same type of interest of changing laws? Of, are they really about the heart and soul of, do they even love people? There's so many people I know that run for office, and you find out later, they're not about the people. They're about themselves. They're about the notoriety. They're about the, just the popularity for themselves, So we need to have workshops educating people on just who is going to be sitting in those seats, making changes that are for the betterment of humanity.
I definitely agree with that. I would say, part of my issues that I have as a voter sometimes is understanding exactly, who should I vote for, or it's just the understanding that I'm going to vote for a certain party, or I'm going to do this, or I'm going to do that. I think we get bogged down into certain sections where this is where you go and you just vote for whoever's on the thing without really looking at it and understanding what certain politics are. Are these the things that you really want to vote for, and who's there? So a lot of times, and then sometimes it's not really a great choice. So it's kind of like you're stuck with, all right, I get one thing from this person, so I got to be okay with that. But everything else that they do, it's a little bit weird. So I think some of that does come down to, at the end of the day, it's the people that are on the ballot too. I feel like that's a little bit of voter suppression too, because you're giving me these two choices that may not be exactly what I even want, So now I just got to work with it. So some of that too is, how do they get into these positions of power where they're the only options for, certain bigger pieces of politics because we're voting them in, at these smaller elections and things like that. And I think some of that is not knowing exactly who the person is, and then they get so high up, you really don't have a choice after, a certain time frame, push this person forward, you kind of got to go with it. And just also understanding, where your voting site is and stuff and how to see that. There also was the incidents where the poll booths and stuff weren't being delivered to certain spots and they were getting misdelivered or they were hidden in the back room and never got set up. So I think there's a lot of little things that happen behind the scenes that kind of paint that narrative of making it harder for you.
I feel like it's important to almost have a commercial right now to say, get involved, get involved locally, get involved regionally, get involved on a state level, find your pathway in, find that, open window, jiggle the door handle, find your pathway in, because that is what you're talking about is so true. But you have to be, we all have to be, it's not even, I say you, just as you, general, but we all have to be so involved on that local level because that's the starting point of so many things and so many decisions that snowball upward, spiral upward.
I love this conversation. I really do, because I think it's important that all of us, especially the people who take for granted or aren't even fully able to acknowledge the privilege that we have in situations like voting, in situations like having the 19th Amendment even exist. It is just so important to not that I'm here to be educated, but it's important to have these sort of dialogues. And I think I love what you're saying about finding your in, finding the cause that you're passionate about, finding the way for yourself to get involved. And it is really difficult when you feel disconnected from what's going on in the world and feeling disconnected from your community. Raise your hand if you get so mad when you hear someone doesn't vote. Oh, how high can I raise it? Everyone over there is raising it too. But a lot of times the reasoning behind that is we got down there. The League of Women Voters is come register to vote right now.
We're high-fiving you over
We're
here.
high-fiving with our hearts and souls. But in reality, it only helps when you actually vote. Yeah. And like you said, there are so many obstacles that can be in the way. There are so many reasons not to. And it can be really hard when you're having to choose between Bob, and Bob on the ballot. And also the write-in candidate, Bob. What's been really nice, though, is seeing women like Stacey Abrams who are really making changes on local, state level, and hopefully international. By the way, my mom loves Stacey Abrams, and it was 2 years ago, she's like, oh, I really want Stacey Abrams to be president. And my mom is a boomer, so that is a really big deal for me to just see her recognize the magic and the power of hard work and organizing and mobilizing and bringing together people's voices. So keep going. Tell us more.
She really, she exemplifies so much of the suffrage movement in the sense that she manifested something that didn't exist. She made things happen that were not happening. And so did the suffragists from back in the day. Can you imagine I always use the same word because I can't think of another one to really encapsulate it, but the audacity when you're living in a world that says you can't, the audacity to say, why not? To one, ask the question, and then to come up with the answer, to actually make the answer happen by simply getting off of the sidewalk, off of the porch, and getting into the streets in order to make that difference and in order to, get more attention to the cause. So she's a great example of what one voice can do when you find your tribe and you cultivate it.
I'm just saying, that just shows me the strength that we have as women and the things that we can do. And we don't just sit there and, take things forever. We do have the ability to kind of get out there and group together and make things happen. We're an unstoppable force when we put our minds to something, and that just makes me feel happy just to be a part of it, I guess. But just to know that those are the types of things that we can do, and that just kind of bodes well for our future and the different things that women still are unequal at.
So I want to talk about one of the first waves of the suffragist movement and the contrast between where we are now as women in society and the audacity of these women. In the 1800s, it also wasn't just suffrage. It was anti-slavery. It was the suffrage movement. It was the the prohibition, like no more booze thing. The temperance. Thank you for the actual word. But they did that without the internet, guys. Like no internet. This was real, true grassroots conversations that had to be had to change people's minds and to mobilize them to the cause. And these are big changes that were being asked for. And quite often, like we were talking about, there were African American and white women, and everyone was side by side working towards the change. But I would like, tell us more about these other suffragists, about the women who came before us, because we know Susan B. Anthony. Some people do know Ida B. Wells, who I love. She was sassy. But I feel like their voices are never really recognized or heard. And I don't know if it's because of race, I'm sure. Like, let me just be real. Like, let me stop with the BS. It's because of race.
You know what? There were so many interesting people throughout history. I'm going to let you talk about some of these ladies, Jacqueline. But when you look at Native Americans, one of the key voices was a woman by the name of Redbird. I'm not sure of the pronunciation in her native language, but it translates to Redbird. And she was instrumental in making sure that Native Americans were able to vote. The Native Americans had citizenship as well in this country. It's just cringeworthy. But she is one of the people who was a key voice in that. Another key person is Mabel Inkpa Lee, if I'm pronouncing that correct. Please give me points for at least trying. But she was another key voice in the Asian and Pacific Islander community she organized rallies at 16 for suffrage. That is such an incredible knowledge of self and what we can do and what's in a sense of right and wrong, and in a sense of I can be one of the people to help change it. Let's see, who else? There's so many other voices. There's Nina or Adelina, who went by Nina Otero Warren. She was critical in galvanizing the Latin and Hispanic community. So her ability to bring those individuals together as well in their fight for suffrage was another part of the wave. So I feel like they were all these different, as Jacqueline talks about the wave, there were all of these different waves of people, of groups that kept coming and kept coming and kept coming until it was achieved for everybody. But she was critical in bringing that community together. So it really took that entire push of everybody's 1%, 2%, 20, 15, 50, whatever that number was, it took everybody's efforts in order to get it together so that we could have suffrage.
And I want to speak about Shirley Chisholm. She was the first African American woman to run for the U.S. presidency, major party ticket. And what she said was, I am not the candidate of Black America. Although I am Black and proud, I am not the candidate of the women's movement of this country. Although I am a woman and equally proud of that, I am the candidate of the people, and my presence before you symbolizes a new era in American political history. And that's the type of person that I'm hoping, just like Stacey Abrams. She is a reflection of Shirley Chisholm, someone who's for all people. Because as you know, if it's just about one segment, one section, one particular people, you're not going to make the true change that we need in this country. We need to be for all people. And I loved another quote that she said, if they don't give you a seat at the table, bring a folding chair. Bring a folding chair. And, that's the spirit that I have. You don't have to give me your golden seat, your golden chair, but, I have a voice. I'm going to use it. And I guess I'm going to read something from a magnificent queen, a magnificent writer, modern day poet. And it's entitled For Sovereignty of Self. No name, no property, no voice. Twist your imagination to envision a human without self-determination. Sans suffrage, all because of race or genderification. The beauty that is American has a history of disgrace. But wait, that hurts my heart even to say, for she is not the first to host an ugly truth. What makes her remarkable is that she forged a new grace. She broke through, rose to meet the zeitgeist of the times, changed to make room at the table as she continues to catch up to the people's climb. Some of the biggest rocks of progress were rolled by women who gave birth to equality in the face of extreme derision. Elizabeth, Lucretia, Sojourner, Lucy, Redbird, Ida, Susan, Fanny, Alice, Nina, Victoria, Carrie, Harriet, Ella, Mabel, Mary. So many names to remember, so many others unknown. They are the legacy who inspire us, who will spark next and continue advocating for what's just. Which new names will echo from the next generation's call? Who will make sure we are represented among the all? Just know there is a girl watching you, a young person eager to emulate all you do, a mother or auntie or sister friend who believes in your potential, an ancestor who gave and gives you a power existential. Let me encourage you to see what's wrong, to hold it together or break it apart, to make it roughly hewn or fashionably art, to stand in the gap, pioneering a fresh start. My sisters, we sing exclusion into a choral song. Stitch a bespoke space where we and others belong. Tireless in our fight, beautiful in our strong. Queen Monique Headley.
Yes. That is beautiful, beautiful.
You're amazing.
Thank you. That was just heart. That was just pure heart from the day, what it means. That was just pure heart. Thank you. That was
Very
wonderful.
well said.
Thank you.
So what I really love about this panel is I've gotten to know everyone in different ways through Palette. But with you, Monique, and with Jack too, really, we've spent a lot of time together in our Writers Club here at Palette. And we do not shy away from difficult issues. We do not. We've had some of the most incredible, I'm going to cry just thinking about it. And it's not because we're corny. I mean, we might be, but we're able to talk about the hard things through art by finding a way to put these big feelings and these big challenging emotions and having to interpret what's happening. By the way, you should join Writers Club. It's kind of
Yes,
intense.
please. Yes,
You really
It's a
should.
sisterhood, brotherhood,
Yes.
family. It's a family.
And really what I love about that event is that it's the most diverse one that we have. We have men, we have women, we have representation of different races. and we have different voices. I so love and value and appreciate your voices, and yours too, even though the only writing we do together is through email. But you're wonderful. You're wonderful. But thank you for sharing that and for opening up your heart and for telling the truth.
You know what? I think we're in a time of truth telling. We're in a time of drawing back curtains. We're in a time of shining light. We're in a time of just manifesting. This is a whole new era of manifestation that's happening, and people shouldn't shy away from it. The door is open to have those difficult conversations. The door is open to have questions that you've always wondered about answered by somebody who can really legitimately answer it, that you don't have to, that doesn't involve Google. Have the conversations, talk to people. What's on people's minds? How do you feel? And know that it's okay for everybody to have their respective opinions, but at least have the conversation.
So we have to wrap it up, even though I could just sit here all day with you three amazing humans.
I don't have to say another thing after reading that.
I know.
Yeah,
After reading that, like we're basically
Follow after
wait,
that.
I would say drop the mic,
I know, right?
But don't drop it.
but don't ever drop the mic in reality.
Monique, she makes everybody look good.
Monique does make me.
With her writing, everybody just shines.
But I really want to thank the three of you, Jacqueline, Monique, and Destiny, for having this conversation with me, for opening yourselves up to this conversation, and for letting me have the conversation with you. It really is just an honor because you're all badasses. And this is not easy stuff to talk about all the time. Like, it really isn't. But this is the place for it. Today is the time for it. And I hope that, anyone watching this is feeling encouraged to have this conversation with people in their lives and to be open to it. Thank you guys. Women's Equality Day. We'll be back soon. And thank you all for tuning in and for being here.
Thank you, Marcella.
Thank you, Marcella.
Thank you.
You're
We
awesome.
love you.
Love Palette. If you're not joined, join.
Join it.
Join it.
Join us.